Hi, it's Helen. I'm going to play with a mixture of products today, mainly focusing on the gorgeous mushroom toadstool stamp because I really love this. So I'm going to stamp it on the Lavinia watercolour card because it's great for all the different mediums that I want to use. And I'm using VersaFine Clair Nocturne. So we'll stamp that in the middle. Perfect as usual. The stamps are so easy to use. I'll just clean that off. And what I did do earlier is I stamped it on some masking sheet. I don't know if you've ever seen this before, but it's like a paperback with a plastic carrier, and you can stamp on it. So I've cut out this mask that we're going to place over the top of the stamped image to block it off so we can add some colour in the background before we start colouring. I'm just going to trim off the last little bit along the bottom there. When you're trimming, you really need to be going on the inside of the line so that you don't get a kind of halo or a white gap in between your stamped image and your background. I'll show you what I mean in a minute regarding that. So I'm trying to cut it on the inside of the line. It's a great one to mask because it's not too fussy. There we go. And then if you peel off the backing, be careful not to rip it because it is just really paper based. And I'm going to pop this over my image and I'm going to try and get it as exact as I can. Because like I say, we really don't want any gaps. There we go. So we've covered our image over, and I'm going to use some Distress Oxide, one of my favourite things for backgrounds. There's so much to choose from, but I do love these. So I'm using Fired Brick, I'm using Spice Marmalade, Mustard Seed, and my green is Forest Moss. Give it a good ink up. I'm actually going to move this paper so I can go direct onto the messy mat. Give me a bit of movement. And I always like to start off the paper, bringing the ink in. And obviously when you're coming up to the mask, you just got to be a little bit more gentle because you don't want to peel that mask off. There's so much we could have done. We could have, you know, put another mask on and created a nice moon. But I just wanted to keep it simple so that we can get to the part of the pens to show you how vibrant they're going to be. Bit of the marmalade. Just going slightly over the colour before to make sure that we're blending in nicely. Bit of mustard seed. Mine actually is very juicy, so I'm going to be careful with that. And I'm not getting too much. And then the Forest Moss at the bottom. I'm going to turn myself around. And I do like to use just a little bit of paper if I can, just to hold the top of my image because it's so easy to get those fingerprints in the ink and remove the ink. So a little bit of paper just to hold myself. Nice and gentle around that image. Got really old applicators, so they're breaking up. I need to get some new ones. And I'm going to go back in with the yellow just to make sure that yellow and the green is blended nicely. There we are. I will actually use just a little bit of chipped sapphire just around the base of the mushroom. just so it's not freestanding in the air. And we'll use the green just to blend that in. That's lovely. So really, really nice sunset there going on. So what's going to be left underneath is just a really nice bright white piece of paper, hopefully. Let's have a look. There we go. Now I actually like it just like that, but I am going to colour it in. But there's just something about that contrast that's really, really gorgeous. In fact, before I do that, I'm going to put my mask back on. I'm just going to add even more texture to that background. I'm going to add some water droplets, as if that mushroom's been in the rain. I'll just get a bit of tissue and block that off. Just to remove, gives it a really great texture. And I'm also going to add some of our drop of shimmer, because I think that gold is just delicious. And that'll add some nice effects. Using a really small brush here. If I used a bigger one, I'd probably get a bit more of an effect. Let's pop the lid back on that. Know what I'm like. And just going to give myself a blast with the heat gun, because when I peel this mask off, I don't want to be smudging those beautiful gold sparkles with the pens. I'll give it a good blast. There we go. And we're going to use some of the Clean Colour pens to colour in the image. You know it's one of my favourite products. They're such good quality that they give an amazing effect every single time. And you don't need very many colours to be able to do what you want to do. I'm going to use marine green and yellow green, and it's going to give us a really wicked funky mushroom. So I like to turn it upside down because I want to start at the bottom where I think it will be darker and work up to the light where the sun's going to be beating down on it. So as we've discussed in the past, Clean Colour, it's a water-based pen, but it's the brush that glides on the paper, doesn't leave a scratchy effect, always gives us a really nice ability to blend without it soaking straight into the card. I am using the Lavinia mixed media watercolour card, and that just helps as well. So I'm going to do it in smaller sections. I'm going to use the dark, and then I'm going to use the light one, and I'm going to just catch that dark, and I'm going to drag it up to the top. If you've got a little bit too much dark on your brush, just on a bit of tissue or a baby wipe, just wipe it off so it goes back to being that really light colour, so that we can take that all the way through the spectrum. Add some more of the dark green. But it turns into this beautiful, like toxic green. And that's just mixing two colours together. And you can imagine how many colours you can create using the whole box of pens. It really is beyond your imagination. And we'll do the final little bit there. So I'm just going slightly into the dark green, picking it up. Circular motion does help if you struggle with your blending. There we go, that's looking great. We also need to do these bits. Blend those in. So therapeutic colouring. Love it. Right, I think we're going to use a little bit of this one just for those underneaths, just to make them a slightly different colour. Go. And then we'll do the trunk. I think I'll use oatmeal and ochre. I can't remember which one's lightest and which one's darkest, so I'm just going to test it first. Right, that's my dark, that's my light. The plastic colours are very good, but it's not the same as colouring out yourself as chart. And on that note, I do know that Tracy is going to be getting some empty blank charts for the Clean Colour and the Gonzo Tambi, which you can print off at home, or they'll send you one in your delivery, and you can colour it with your pens. So therefore it's in front of you, it's going to be exactly the colour that's coming out of the pen, so it's a lot easier to select what you want. And we're going to colour down the sides with the dark, blend it into the middle with the light. Just mix that in. Lovely. I think I missed a bit there. I think I'll just use the dark colour for this so it's nice and contrasted. And obviously we have a little fairy living inside there, so they've got the light on. Let's put them a little bit of light on there. I'm just going to give a little bit of colour to these. Not being too fussy with them. If I take the blender pen, we can just blend that colour over without changing the colour. Just adds a little bit of shading rather than changing it all together. There we go. And then a little bit of colour at the bottom. I'm going to call them pebbles, but they can be anything. And we use a lighter grey just to drag that over and shade it in. Lovely. So let's show you so far. Just a little bit closer up. There we go. Now in a previous video we talked about the embossing pens, and one of the things I love about them is how precise I can be. So if I want something a little bit glossy, I can use one of these, colour it in. I'm going to use some deep clear embossing powder. So I can colour in the bits that I would like to add the embossing powder to. Now I know we can do this with glossy accents, however glossy accents take a long time to dry. Can be runny and go everywhere, so this is just a lot safer an option. I can put it exactly where I want it to go. I don't need to wait for it to dry because we're going to heat set it, and I'm not tempted to put my finger in it while it's still wet, which we've all done. Now I can't remember which ones I've coloured because obviously you can't see it that well because it is blue going on to green. So I'm going to add some powder and then I'll be able to see which ones I've done and which ones I haven't done. Oh, there we go. Probably would have been best to heat set the ink first because the powder does like to stick to anything that's slightly wet. But you'll get the idea. Put that away. So we're just going to give this a blast. I'm going to heat it from underneath because it is ultra thick and I don't want it to blow away. I want it to give me those nice little sheens and shines on top of our mushroom. There we go, it's starting to go now. There we go. See those little raised parts on some of the mushroom, how glossy and effective they look. And I'm just going to finish it off by putting just a little bit of walnut stain around the outside, just to frame it and draw your eye inwards. And there we go. Show you a close up.